in light of going over things in my mind through the night and waking up this morning, reading the comments on my blog and other blogs and hearing people talk, I decided to do an unusual podcast for me. Now, I don't like to do cuts. Sometimes if I say a dumb monkey thing, you'll see a little skip there. I don't want it to be canned. I don't want it to be performance. So I usually just let the thing run. Even if I screw up, I'm like, I let the screw up be there. So I'm going to have cuts today because I want to be as precise as possible. And if I get off the beaten trail or I'm not going the direction exactly I want, got to cut. So that's one. Two, I'm a wild dude, a maniac, and I suffered a lot. And I learned to rein that in using logic and reason and protocols and discipline of my mind in order to escape the madness, let's say. And so when I do this channel here, I try not to be fanatical and fan purveyor. You know, I want to do evaluation, and I try to use logic, and I try to use the things I was taught in college and through life and mentors and the whole thing to really try my best to present good information. Of course, I'm human, and I diverge from that. But this time, I'm going to add some pathos that's not really constrained in that format in some parts. Although I am going to try my best as an investigative journalist to lay out the things, to really dial in on some main aspects that I'm hearing and I'm seeing of the events from Sunday all the way to the events of Thursday of Tua and his issues, to try to take what I've heard and distill it down to very clear points to get through this fog of war. So I'm going to have chapters, got my chapters written down here, and you're going to be able to skip over the pathos parts if it's not your deal. If you got too much of that, you can go on. But I think I've got a pretty good handle on the situation after really digging into it. And so I'm going to have timeline, back injury versus head injury, test, beating the test, the hit, and the situation now. So that's going to be on after that second part. I usually do the commercial thing there, so that's where that's going to be. Right now, I'm going to give the pathos opening, and you could skip it if it's not for you, but I'm here to tell you why this situation, head trauma, and I'm an expert in trauma of all sorts. I don't say that to be a tough guy or anything. I have had a very odd life. And head trauma is something I deal with, and the fallouts, even today. So this has a very personal thing to me. But even when I saw Tua get injured, it froze me. And I said that last time with Dane Jackson, it froze me for a reason. You know, Bills aren't my team. There's things about I like about them and many other things. But the team that I focused on and have for a very long time is the team of humanity. That's the first primary directive of me as a person when I view football players or whatever, different colors, different nations, different choices, different religion, whatever. One team of humanity, and that is always at the pinnacle of the hierarchy. And then I go down. I'm a compartmentalization kind of guy. And so when he was injured and went down, I felt that. But then because of my training and who I am and what I am for my life and what I've been taught, I began to compartmentalize things. And as the game progressed, it was about the game. And I saw very good things from a football standpoint. And my podcast preceding that, it had a pathos part, an understanding to a situation. But I immediately went back to my training and what I try to do here and create that compartmentalization and project the football aspects. Now, I have, from a very early age, experienced major head trauma. The first time I had a concussion, I was 8 years old. We were playing baseball with the kids, and a guy behind me struck out with his aluminum baseball bat and whipped it right into the back of my head because I was turned this way, and all I saw was blackness. Pulled myself off the ground, people standing around me, and I got on my bike, rode 2 or 3 miles home, and that was it. And with a short time after that, I started playing football. I must have been like 8 there, The 9 is when I started playing football. So, and I remember the first day of practice, my coach was like, this is a game of hitting. Let's see who's the best hitters. I went with Chucky Wildman. We would go there. I had no father. His father would take us to the game, to the practice. Chucky Wildman always had this weird, thick forebrow. He looked like a Neanderthal, super smart guy, but he looked like caveman. And everyone would they'd just stand like 5-6 yards apart and smash each other. And the coach would say, that's not hitting. Eventually it came to me and Chucky, and we would make the loudest crack. He goes, that's hitting, guys. This is hitting. This is what I want. This is what football's about. So every single practice, to start off, for the most part, not every, but most, he'd have us do the nutcracker, smack, 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 and extol us on how to hit. Chucky didn't seem to give a darn about it. And me, every time I hit, my head would hurt. But I grew up with the pathos. I had no father. My pathos was all the macho, tough guys. I never quit. I would never surrender. I always had to be number one, and I would never, ever not do it. Although towards the end of those hits, I would start pulling back just a little bit, praying it would be over. But I never stopped doing it because I grew up in a German cultured background with a Japanese strong influence underneath, and it was old world style, follow orders, serve, and my own pathos of being a tough guy. I remember another concussion. I was in a fight with some dude, and he was nothing, and I could have destroyed him. And I looked around. I'm like, what the hell am I doing? Take a step back, fall off a hill, 10, 15 feet on the back of my head. And the mercy I gave him, he didn't give me. He ran downstairs, flipped me over, and started beating on my head for 5 minutes. I remember even after that, and I understood these things, and it's part of the reason why I became a running back, because I could control the hits. I never liked playing defense because my head always hurt when I would make those hits. I always led with my head, but as a running back, I never got hurt as a running back. And then I remember, and this is going to tie into a major aspect that I'm going to get into, the test. My young friend, he was only about 20, 21 or something like that at the time. He was having a heart valve transplant. We went out drinking like a madman at the bar, got out of the bar. It was an old movie theater that was getting closed down we used to go to, and he wanted one of the letters on top of it. And I wanted to be his friend and go up there drunk, grab the letter off the thing, threw it down to him, and I wanted to do a performance, jump down on my fingers and spin down to the ground to the hard cement sidewalk below. My fingers obviously weren't able to handle it. I went like a lawn dart straight down head first. Last thing I remember is my hand coming up and blackness and hearing, he's dead, he's dead, he's dead. Wake up, cops are there, ambulance is showing up. I get up, my hands like this. I get into the ambulance, cops there, my friends are there. They're like, what happened? I said, no, I got it. I said, I got a dislocated hand, probably a broken bone, and a concussion. They put the light in my eyes, checks my hand. He goes, wow, man, that's a good diagnosis. I think you're right. Went to the hospital. They put your hand in a little machine and the little straps, and they pop the hand back in, and they put the cast on. Never checked my head. Sent me home. Got in my car like this, driving home, trying to do the thing. Month later, I take the cast off. I'm on a high-level college rowing team because I wanted to be in it. And I never went back to the doctor because I was an old world guy. My mother never believed in doctors. There was plenty of nights that I sat home with broken fingers. My mom didn't want to go to the doctor and waste the time. And I would put popsicle sticks and tape on it and cry myself to sleep by taking Advil. She was an alcoholic and a little bit of a maniac, but it was an old world mentality. Last concussion I had was in my mid-30s. I loved the game of football. Never have I felt alive and at home in this world except on the football field. It was where I could express myself and be who I really felt like I was. Never wanted to join. I wanted to join the Army. I come from a military family, but I never wanted to kill anybody. So this was a place where I could be the guy that I made myself to be without really hurting people. And I remember some guy, he was a running back, and it's flag football. You're not wearing equipment, but he wanted to take me out because I was a good player, probably the best on the team. I was, actually. And he put his head right into my chin, split it open, like this big gash, blood's dripping. All I saw is the lights. It's like a strobe light hits you. And you hear, woo! And you're looking around, and everyone's like, oh! I go on the sideline, and they're like, you sit down. I take my jersey off, rip my shirt off, put it around my head, tie it, and I put it on. I go back in. I'm not letting this guy take me out. I am not losing. Went back in the game, a lot of protesting, can't stop me. I play, we lost anyway, but I wasn't going down. And then since that point in time, my son was diagnosed with ADD, ADHD, whatever that, I don't even know. Supposedly it comes from me. And my whole life has been a series of instabilities of the brain. And now I constantly have to, when I wake up, it's just, I got headaches. It's hard for me to think. I don't know if it comes from this ADD thing. I don't know if it comes from all the head trauma, because the stories I just told you is a small, small portion. Eating, the heavy drinking, the crazy drug use I did for 2 or 3 years. But every day I have this whole concoction, this whole thing, all these herbs and stuff I take, and then I got my pill, which is a real pharmaceutical pill. And I got to go through it and try to figure out what's going to get me going and get my brain alive every single day. I do the concoctions, and most days if I got some mental project to do, I have to take the pharmaceutical pill. And it's very hard for me to focus. It's very hard for me to really smile and be positive if I'm not on this concoction. And so I want to say this because I understand both the mentality. I never got paid to take that abuse. I loved it. I fed off it. I liked getting hit. It brought me to life. And I like to fight and I like to win. But then I also kind of understand the after effects. I'm eventually going to have to go to the doctor and do all the thing. I was supposed to get CAT scans or whatever, MRI, because my son had it for the ADD, but I don't like doctors. I don't want to go, and maybe I don't want to find out. So I say all this. I understand. I have had major concussions and been able to perform during, after, and rebounded, except for the one where I fell off the building on my head, on concrete, 10 feet. That took me out for a little time. So I'm really, really understanding of all elements of this. Not an expert, anecdotal. And so I want to do this as a backdrop to the rest of this stuff, which I'm going to, for the most part, go back to being analytical and really try to dial in on facts. So before I do that, I got to do my usual, because it matters to me to say thank you for stopping by, listen to the spiel. Likes and subscribes and comments. Comments, so much good comments. Bills fans showing up, Dolphins fans showing up. There was some darkish comments, but thank you for stopping by. Just want to give a shout out to AcePerHead, my sponsor. Without you guys and without them, this show ain't going down. AcePerHead's betting software is the premier white label platform for bookies to manage their players and grow their sportsbook operation. Click the link in the description below to get set up in minutes. Ask for the Curtis promo and get a special introductory discount. Now that the bathos part is gone, you understand I got a dog in the game, or a horse in the game, a dog in a fight. I don't know. I understand, and I am empathetic. I have to put that on the side, compartmentalize that, and try to do a journalistic detail of the situation. From what I've heard, these are not all my original thoughts, although one I think isn't original, but it's pretty good. Pulling all that I've seen and heard and thought and listened to and distill it down in a very clear pattern. I think it's pretty obvious. Now, we don't know if Tua had a concussion on Sunday or not. He had one, obviously, on Thursday. But no one is 100% certain what happened on that Sunday game with the Bills. Now, to me, evidence is pretty clear, and it puts everything really close to the end of being certain. And there's the one sticking point is the evaluation. And I'm going to get to that. And I feel there is some very concrete things out of this. Now, the timeline, which shows me something isn't right about it being a back injury, is when Tua fell, we all know the head hit the ground. First thing he did was grab his head. When he got up, he wobbled He lost his balance, stood up, wobbled a little more. Someone came and helped him, and he was leaning to one side, and then they helped him walk off. Now, that's what we saw. And with that, we are supposed to say, this is a back injury. That's what we're told. But the very first prognosis was head injury. And the first prognosis lines up with what we saw and this timeline. Now, we have back injury and ankle injury and head injury. Could be all three. But these are the choices that we have. So, I've had a very bad back injury, and as I told you all the head injuries and all this other stuff. When he hit that ground, he could have hurt his back. At the early part of the game, there was a goal line quarterback sneak, and you see he got folded back a little bit. And so there is some evidence to say it was the back. But when you get a head injury and a concussion and your noodle is scrambled, it looks exactly like what we saw. When your back gets injured, you do not lean this way, you do not lean that way, you don't stumble. You drop to the ground and try not to move. And you certainly don't get hurt so bad that you stumble and wobble and need to be helped aside and then walk off. I've had a back injury, and when it hit, because they're saying he got injured earlier in the game, and then the second injury aggravated and took it to another level. If it's another level, it's sheer fire pain. Back injuries in the spinal column with all those nerves reaching to your body, it's fire. I've had one back injury where some young tough tried to prove himself, didn't know how to block it, put his knee into my hip. I was like, whoa, what's that? Continued to practice. And then when I sat down in the car and my wife drove me home, when I got out of the car, all of a sudden fire. I couldn't even walk. I couldn't move. I couldn't stand. I had to find these awkward position to stand because there's so much pain involved. A back injury is about pain. Instability, maybe, but I've never experienced that. I've only experienced pain. Unbelievable pain. Head trauma usually causes lack of focus, a gross motor skill breakdown. And this is the thing. There's a rule. I can't remember who said it. Really good point. An astute point. And this brings it back. Everybody who looked at that said head injury. It was diagnosed head injury. There is a rule. If there's gross motor instability, that points to a head injury. And the rule is they do not go back in the game. So, this is the crux. The only way to truly diagnose if there is not head trauma is an MRI and a CT scan. If you're a doctor and you see somebody act like that, which is the definition of head trauma, and the rule is if you see this, you are not supposed to go back in the game, there is a breakdown, whether it's an independent doctor or the team doctor. The obligation is to not send the kid back into the game until it's diagnosed. Now, they said he was checked every single day to see if it was a concussion after the injury. Only way you could tell, honestly, is a CT scan and an MRI. If he had that, game, set, and match for there was no prior concussion. If he did not get that, you have to ask why not, and how could you come to a firm diagnosis without that happening? Simply after the game, could have gone to the hospital, got the CT or MRI, and the next day they would have known. Done. End of story. So if this was done, then we know. If it wasn't done, there was no way to know, and I don't understand how a doctor could perceive these gross anomalies in action, have the rules say you can't go back into the game. Maybe he goes back in the game because he beats the test. What's the test? Are you okay? Do you have a concussion? What game are you on? What planet are you on? I mean, I've broke my arm, fell headfirst on the concrete, and within a short time after that, I was able to diagnose myself and talk straight through. I totally had a concussion. I was unconscious. And I've had that happen multiple times where something, the black, the shine, there's the woo, and then you come back and you're like totally fine. So to say that the test can diagnose a concussion, it's anecdotal until you get the CT or MRI. And given the rule, gross motor inconsistency, you are not allowed back in the game, there's a major issue here. 100%. 100%. And if this guy did not get the test throughout the week and they sent him into the game, this is medical malpractice. It's clear. Because all he needed was a CT MRI to determine if it was a concussion or not. Now, he could have had his bell rung, had a bad back and a bad ankle, and said my back and my ankle and still got a concussion, just like me with the broken arm. But I had a concussion too. But it was, we focus on this part and because it served the purpose. And again, I could see going back into the game, you trick it, whatever, except that rule is really sticky. But no, if there was no CT or MRI major, if they had it, game over, forget about it. Look, all I have to do is show the MRI and CT scan and say this kid was fine. They said there was tests all week long. If there was tests all week long, there was a CTI and MRI, end of story. Okay, so now I see some people saying that the hit and that is a sign of he was injured before and this is a second cut. That's not true. Anybody who watches fighting, go watch MMA. The guys always do this when they get hit. They get a kick to the side of the head, under the chin, or whatever, lights out, and it happens all the time. So it's just a sign of a severe blow to the head and trauma. But we also have to understand there was a video about somebody, he was like they did a football concussion story on, he was the doctor involved, and he's like top of the top of the top of the top, and neurologists. And he said, you gotta understand, a concussion is like a fracture of the bone, but a fracture of the brain. You need months to recover. Months. And so another person brought up on another show how the NFL was hiding the damage to the brain for years, so you can't trust them. And that goes back into the situation with Miami. Miami's untrustworthy. I mean, I'm not saying McDaniel or whatever. I'm saying the organization. And they could be totally telling the truth, but they have a history of duplicity. I mean, just think about it. All the things that went on with Tua through this point, they were not obvious. Russ lied multiple times. Multiple times. Oh, we want Tua, but he's going to get Watson. We want Tua, but he's looking for Brady. Come on. So, we don't know what happened, but clearly in this moment, the rule is gross motor disturbance. Player does not go back. The only way to diagnose a concussion is MRI, CT scan. Get out of jail free card, the boomerang back at everybody else is MRI and CT scan, but you still can't avoid this guy with his wobbling and falling, all this other stuff, should not have gone back into the game according to the concussion protocols. How did he make it back in? And if there was not, and this will be a big deal. I don't know if the coach is supposed to know these protocols. We're going to have to wait and see. But clearly, Tua should never have gone back. I didn't know these protocols until just now, like today, studying. Clearly, should never have gone back. And you could beat these tests. Follow my finger. Anybody who's played a game of football and had a concussion understands this. Only way is for this test. Now, last part. I actually saw some people say this hit wasn't a big hit. You're insane. I would have to say the people who said this aren't bad people. They just don't understand. I mean, if you go back and watch that takedown, the beginning where he grabs him and he gets there to the middle part, you see a vast acceleration of velocity in the middle. But I rarely have seen 320-pound guy, 230-pound guy jerked and that acceleration of speed into the ground. If you think that that's not something most people would be rung, the bell would be rung heavy duty, then you are insane, or you think people are Superman. That was a severe hit because of that acceleration of velocity. Go back and watch it. It's like this. My wife starts like, she wanted me to go back and it's like there's like that mid part where it just zips and he hits the ground. That was a brutal blow. And it doesn't mean that he had a concussion prior. That takedown alone and the acceleration of velocity is enough to concuss anybody, whether he had a concussion before or after. Now, if he had a concussion prior 4 days before, and then he had a second one of this, that's critical. So, to me, there is very nebulous stuff going around there. Tua chose to go back in. I would have chose to go back in too. Most people would that are in that sport. Tua was obviously involved, but maybe he didn't fully understand. It might have been a small little ding, you know? You shrug that stuff off when you get it. But the staff, the medical staff, the coaches, the independent doctor, they are obligated, certainly the medical side, I don't know what the coach's responsibility is, to understand the rule, to keep him out and protect him. Now, last part. I was talking to somebody, I should have wrote his name down, real smart guy. I'll probably pop his little comment, part of it, up in the thing here, if I can find it. Really good stuff. Talking about how people view players as meat, their product. And I saw some people I really like that had no sympathy. They might not like Tua and they want him to replace Laws, but it's a human being. It's not this digital world we are in creates two-dimensional representations of humans. And people have a tendency to view these humans not in a 3D likeness, in a 2D. And the empathy, the understanding, there's mothers and fathers and girlfriends and sisters and family crying, weeping, terrified. How can you celebrate that? I know you don't mean to. It doesn't mean you're a bad person, but this is serious. And you might be happy he's out of the game. I could get that. But the actual injury and celebration of the injury, gotta rethink. We're humans. We're all people. And in the framework of the game, I understand. You can even see the guy who sacked Tua celebrating. Like, yeah, I took him out. you know that guy afterwards is like, the emotion kind of blinds us. This digital world, this simulacron existence blinds us. Let's remember what the truth is, the value is, and let's think better in the future, please, of humans that are in suffering. That's just my empathy and my empathetic plea to you people. I thank you all. I know no one's a bad guy, really. Just don't understand. Maybe got caught up in heat. Anyway, I don't know if this is going to go over well, but I felt like I had to, and I believe there is some real concrete outside the stuff. So thank you for stopping by here. I know it's long. I'm not going to do the whole thing, but Dolphins fans, Bills fans, Dallas fans, all fans everywhere, all people everywhere. We're on this rock for a short period of time. We battle for just smiles and good things because life is hard. Let's not celebrate hardship for anyone, except for those few really evil people that I can understand. They're really evil, then yes. But most of us, we're just the regular dudes. Let's not celebrate that. Anyway, Kurt saying thanks for staying to the end, blah, 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 blah. Catch you next time. Tua, get better, man. Get better. See you soon. Start building your own online sportsbook today by getting signed up with AcePerHead.com service that'll allow you to book action on sports from all around the world.